Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the oil pressure switch or oil pressure sensor on this 2008 Ford Fusion. Now this should be pretty much the same for all of the older model Fusions and Mercury Milans. And I will show you exactly where it's located, how to get it off, how to put it back in, and I'm going to be showing you the easier way to do this. So why am I replacing the oil pressure sensor, and how do I know that's what needs to be replaced? So a few days ago, I was driving on my way to work and I saw the oil light turn on. Technically, I saw it turn off. I was parked at a stop sign and I looked at my cluster whenever I started driving, and I just noticed it for just an instant and then it disappeared. So I kept an eye on that, and I noticed that every time I came to a stop, the oil light would pop up, and then once I started moving again, it would disappear. There are a few things you want to check out whenever your oil light turns on. Normally, whenever your oil light turns on, I would recommend pulling over immediately. In my case, I did not do that because it disappeared, and I was just down the road from where I was heading. So whenever I got there, I made sure to check my oil, which is the first thing I would suggest. If your oil light pops on, you might just be low on oil. And if that's the case and you are low on oil, top that off and see if that turns the light off. These are three of the main things. There are other things that could be causing this, but these three things are the main things you should watch for. The second concern, which would be the oil pressure sensor or the oil pressure switch, that's actually very common to go out on these Ford Fusions and Mercury Milans. So I kind of figured that was it. And also the fact that the light would disappear whenever I was driving told me that it more than likely was not the oil pump itself. Now, if the oil pump was bad, that light would more than likely stay on. And if your oil pump is bad, that's something you need to replace immediately. I wouldn't recommend driving your vehicle too much farther, if at all. If your engine gets starved of oil, it can blow up pretty quick. That pump is what pushes oil through your engine. That's what keeps everything running smooth, creates a barrier between those metal on metal parts. So if that's out, you really need to get that fixed ASAP. So use this information as you want, but it is not a diagnosis for your particular situation. This is also the 3.0 V6. It's the SEL, but on the 4 cylinders, I would imagine it would be in a similar position. It's going to be somewhere around that oil pan. Tools you're going to need for this install are a couple of crescent wrenches, a 15 for the oil pan nut, 13/16 for the oil pressure switch itself, a tool to remove your oil filter. You may need some contact cleaner or electrical cleaner, and then you're also going to need your new oil and oil filter if you plan to change your oil as well. You may also want a flathead screwdriver. Well, I'm gonna finish this brownie cookie and then let's get started. All right, so I am underneath the car with the oil filter right there, and you can see that sensor right beside it. That is your oil pressure switch. So as I said earlier, there's an easier way to replace that, and that is to take off the oil filter, because as you can see, it's pushed pretty much right up beside that, and there isn't really any room in there. And I've got to replace my oil anyway. As you saw from that dipstick clip, my oil is looking pretty dirty. There's just a little pin here you can depress and pull it off. As you can see, that is full of oil. I'm gonna have to clean that up. And I'm going to be using a 13/16 to get that off of there. Not a lot of room in here. Just gotta be patient. Okay. Well, there it is, that sensor. Just covered in oil. All right, so we got the old one out. You can see it is absolutely covered in oil, and the inside of the plug was also covered in oil. Here is our new part. Some of them will come with this tape already on it. If yours does not, I would recommend getting a more heat-resistant plumber's tape and wrapping it around there. Otherwise, you might have some leakage issues. So now that the old one's out, let's get the new one back in, fill it up with oil, and make sure nothing leaks. One tip for you, whenever you are screwing the new one back in, keep in mind that it doesn't thread all the way in. You're gonna see about 2.5 threads that are sticking out. That's just how these go in. It's normal, but make sure you don't over tighten it. Just keep that in mind whenever you are screwing this back in. If you can see in there, hopefully you can, it does stick out a couple of threads. All right, so it is in there. I cleaned out the electrical connector with some contact cleaner. I just have to put the oil filter back in and fill it back up with oil. This replacement is actually pretty straightforward. You can do it with some very basic tools. I hope that this video was helpful. If it was, feel free to give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm usually pretty good at responding to those. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.